I'd like to start off with inviting our moderator to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mandar Pawde, Managing Director, PwC India. Welcome, Mandar. I request you to please take the first seat. Let's welcome our speakers to the stage, ladies and gentlemen. Let's have a round of applause for Praveen Kumar SK, Managing Director, Recruitment Lead, Accenture Operations India. Vinutha Rao, Senior Vice President and Global Talent Development Head, Digital Business Services, HCL. I believe Vinutha is running a little late, but she will join us while the panel discussion is on. Up next, please welcome Ankit Agarwala, Managing Director, PageGroup. Let's put our hands together for Ankit. And last but not the least, Romy Dutt, Director, Talent Acquisition, Flipkart. Mandar, over to you.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining in this session this morning. Right, and I think this is a very insightful session. I think there are multiple things, Dr. Manjunath, you also mentioned in terms of what are the things which are really changing in this world. Right, our workforce and workplace both are changing continuously, primarily due to how people are changing, and in particularly what are the people needs today. We have combination of people coming from different generations. How do we ensure that the needs of everyone is taken care by, and how do we do that as a part of the recruitment also, right? There are always a dilemma between how do we give flexibility versus freedom versus have a command in terms of what people are doing. How does all these things get together at the same time? We also live in a world today where we have fierce competition, right? In terms of we always hear about talent war going on. And therefore, it is even more important that our hiring is more strategic in nature in today's world. It is very important so that we see the large term and the long term impact on the organization. The complexity and ambiguity is definitely a norm today. And therefore, how do we take everything together and then create a strategy so that it really adds value to our organization and also makes our employees successful? Dr. Manjunath, I will again take a pointer from what you said. It is important to take how do we really get the best of the talent, but it is equally important at how do we nurture them, right? How do we nurture them and make them successful in the future, right? And I think that is what is our theme for the discussion in this panel also. What we are really discussing in this is, in this today's world, when we are talking about strategic hiring, how do we inculcate three major pillars of strategic recruitment? One is, how do we create that purpose for the employees, which is aligned with the organizational vision? How do we ensure that the performance in terms of people and in terms of the complete process is really effective in nature? And finally, how do we, inculcate the passion in the employee so that the person, the talent, is also successful along with the organization, right? And I think for this discussion and even more, we have esteemed panel joining us with us. Thank you for joining in. I will just quickly take quick 1 minute to introduce all of us. We are joined by Praveen. Praveen is Managing Director with Accenture. He is leading recruitment for Accenture Operations. He is absolutely passionate about people and ensuring that how do we create that experience so that people are really successful during the recruitment process itself. We also have Ankit. Ankit is Managing Director with Page India Group. He has been instrumental in creating the brand for the Page in the recruitment industry, and I'm very sure there will be multiple examples which we can learn from Ankit also. And we have Romy also with us. She's Director with Flipkart. I think she has been a seasoned leader. She has led strategic talent acquisition in past, and there are multiple interventions which you have led with multiple success stories also. So again, welcome all three of you. So let's dive in, right? I think maybe Romy, if you allow me, if I start with you, right? One of the thing is when we are talking about purpose, and it's very important that our talent which we are recruiting is aligned with the purpose of the organization. So I just wanted to understand from your perspective and your experience, how do you ensure that the purpose of the organization and purpose with which the talent is joining us is aligned together? And of course, if you can quote some examples in terms of how have you made strategies and how you implemented that? Romy.
Thank you very much, Mandar, for the kind introductions, and thank you everyone. Thank you, Mr. Manjunath, for your very insightful presentation. When it comes to recruitment, purpose is something that I don't know if it is underrated, but in many ways it is at the center of the organization strategy. It is in the center of the organization strategy, and unless the purpose is reflecting in the talent acquisition and the business strategy, the organization itself ends up failing in many ways. Now I come from a company which started some 17 years back and is known arguably as the poster boy of or poster girl of the startup ecosystem in this country. And it was started by everyone knows the story of Flipkart, but just giving some context there, because that takes us back to the purpose and the vision of the founders. And one very critical thing that came across is this, that both the founders had a vision of revolutionizing how retail is done in India, how consumers' mindset is changed and transformed in a very, very big way. So these were some very big, bold bets that the founders had taken at that point in time. That was a time when e-commerce or online shopping was not really accepted in this country, and taking something like this to the masses and ensuring affordability, ensuring that the consumer mindset evolves from a touch and feel to a completely different mindset, that itself was completely revolutionary. And to add to that, their own backgrounds, they had nothing to do with retail, with supply chain. In their backgrounds, they were both techies. So the vision of the founders, trickled into the purpose of the organization, and that trickled into the culture of the organization, which was about doing things that no one had thought of doing before. Breaking a lot of barriers, thinking out of the box, taking an entrepreneurial thought process and mindset, and those were the elements that got into the manner in which the organization today works, and the manner in which talent acquisition goes after recruiting. Those are the kind of people we look for. Our hiring philosophy is all about hiring for intrinsics, and you may not be a domain expert, you may not have all the skills that you need for the job, but if your mindset is right, if you have an entrepreneurial mindset, if you're willing to change how things are today, and if you have the audacity, if you have the bias for action, and if you have customer at the center of everything you do, that is the reason why you may be hired in Flipkart.
I think amazing. Thank you for a great perspective. And I think it really indicates that how a purpose is getting inclined towards the recruitment, and more than that, how do we also bring in the business element of what my organization stands for, and also communicate it better to the talent with whom we really want to attract. And if that really matches, then all the skills of being bold, being ambitious, and being closer to the customer, if that is something that's a purpose, that really aligns. So thank you for this.
I'll just add in,
Sure, Praveen.
Mandar. I think Dr. Manjunath, you really scared us with the National Employability Report. You made our jobs even more tougher today, right? By saying about 80% of the engineers do not possess the skill what's needed for the future. I think it's alarming. While all of us are focused in terms of getting candidates and the prospective employees with future aspiring skills. I'm sure every organization is focused in terms of how do we also skill and train people across. Now, this essential element has made this point even more emphasizing to say that the purpose or the definition of purpose is essential to attract the talent, and eventually we will scale it up, right? So I think purpose plays a crucial role right from the beginning in terms of all your employer branding, what Romy spoke about, Flipkart, and what is the purpose of each and every organization is essential when we craft it out right from your job descriptions to your onboarding and from there on, right? So I think that's the essential element, but I just want to add on that you made it a compelling element for us to include purpose in every aspect of it. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Praveen. And Vinutha, welcome. We just started. We'll come back to you with questions, of course, but very quickly, Ankit, if I may request your perspective on this as well, right? We understand the purpose is very important, but in your experience, because you are in this industry, if you can sort of share one example where this has been done and has really helped organization to achieve some really positive business outcomes.
Sure. Thank you, everyone. Pleasure to be here. I'll start off by saying we are all in a hurry in recruitment today. A lot of recruitment happens with a sword to our necks, that if this doesn't happen within this amount of time, there's big trouble. How many of you have felt like you've hired with a sword to your neck? Okay. Yeah, so slowly the hands are rising. I think it's most of the room. And this is where Mandar's questions comes into a lot of perspective. Aligning on purpose and values is one of the most powerful elements of recruitment. At the same time, it is also the most overlooked aspect of recruitment because we are in a hurry. So I'll start with the interview process first, and then I'll come to the part that you asked, Mandar. When we interview, usually today, you start interviews with skill evaluation. How good is the person's skill? And if the person's skill is good, the organization is in a hurry to hire that. Alignment on values, assessment of values, alignment of purpose gets completely over. I'll give you a very simple practical example. If customer centricity is a very important value for your organization, and if the person you're interviewing is not really listening very well to you, is not really very interested to understand your perspective, but is very keen to say what he or she has to say, clearly the customer centricity and hence alignment with your value system may not be there. But if the skills are there, the person still gets hired in many cases. So I think we need to take a pause and ensure that evaluation and assessment of values and alignment to the company values and purpose is an important part of the interview. Some organization get specific people to evaluate this when they interview. Coming to Mandar's question, if you're able to align purpose well for a person who's coming in, it acts as a great starting point for that person to start building relationships internally, to integrate well into the organization. Because if I'm new into an organization, I bring my own thoughts, people in the company have their own thoughts. But if you're already aligned on the purpose of the organization, the values of the organization, it gives us a great starting point to start working together. So it is very, very effective in getting people well integrated and quickly productive in the organization. I can take Michael Page or PageGroup's example. Our vision is, or our purpose is, changing lives for the better. And once you align people coming into the organization into this vision, even though the results may take time to come, but from day one they are aligned on this purpose and this vision, and it acts as a very, very powerful tool to get the best out of the person that you're hiring. So I would really say that let us not underestimate the power of.
No, amazing. I think Ankit, really well crafted, and I think important aspect which I am drawing out of it is purpose. Aligning purpose is very important, and why it is very important is it not only allows a best candidate to come in, but at the same time, the second part of it, right, when the person is into the organization, makes the talent successful in the organization, which is what is a win-win for both talent and the organization, right? And I think this is very insightful. Thank you for that, Ankit. Ankit, I will move to the next one, right? And I just wanted to shift the gear in terms of from purpose. While this is important, but when it comes to really executing it, right? The process comes into picture, which essentially alludes to the performance. And we are talking about strategic hiring as a process. What do you think, in your experience, are the most critical matrices which one should really think about when we are recruiting for a specific talent? And in this scenario, how do you evaluate those particular talents? Are there particular tools which you have seen, and some strategies which you can share your insights on?
Sure, thanks Mandar. And again, I'll start off by saying that today ROI is the most important thing. I think all of us know that. We are in the era of bottom line today. We are no longer in the era of let's just increase our customers, let's just increase our top line. I can see a lot of smiles around the room. Clearly, we need to get the end result for the effort that we are putting in today. Every company, pretty much every company is in that mode. When it comes to recruitment, certain matrices such as how many people you're interviewing to how many people are actually going to offer stage, firstly becomes very important, because if you're interviewing a lot of people who are not going through in your process, that is number one, not good for your brand. It is also very, very poor in terms of your time spent versus what you're getting back for the organization. So I think there has to be a high degree of intelligence into who you are interviewing, number one, and that can come through automation, AI, etc. Number two, when you're interviewing the person, there has to be a proper effort to talk about the company's purpose, talk about the company's values. I go back to the previous point, not just evaluate the candidate. This is where we tend to miss the bus, which is why there are a lot of dropouts during the interview process. So that two-way street is extremely important in the interview process. Interview to offer to joining. These are not new things. You know about all these things, but which parts of these can we automate, and where do we need to put more human effort is now the key. Because some of these can be automated, sourcing can be automated, who you interview can be automated to a large degree. But the human effort, more of it needs to go on talking about the purpose, talking about the values, evaluating the person with more depth. If you put more human effort in that, then the end result of recruitment will definitely be better in a very, very competitive recruitment scenario today. Last point I will add there is, the shift in recruitment in the last few years has been every organization only wants the top talent today because they are accountable to hire the best people. So the top talent is very much in demand by a lot of organizations. We have to be very good as an organization to be able to attract the best talent, while they may be on the other hand people with no jobs, but the top talent have a lot of options still.
Amazing. I think, thank you, Ankit. And I think it is also equally important when we are looking at these matrices, choosing the right matrices, and at the same time, how do you continuously measure them so that you evolve and improve over the period of time. I think that's again an important thing. Ankit, you also alluded on an aspect of technology, right? AI is being used, analytics is being used continuously to sort of ensure that our performance is continuously improving. And I think this is where, Praveen, if I may request your perspective, right? How have you seen the change in the recruitment performance over the period of time, particularly with the interventions of AI coming into picture, with new technology, new analytics coming into picture? That's part one. And part two, while many of us may understand that all these technologies will help us, the critical challenge is how do you really implement them? What are the challenges which you see, and what are those critical success factors we should always have in our mind when you go with these technologies? Praveen.
No, I think, thank you. It's a very good question. I think we all are familiar that Gen AI is going to be part of our lives as we move along, and each one of us here in the room is one or the other way familiar with what Gen AI can do in our world of recruiting. I mean, this will have an impact across both, which is a candidate life cycle and also the employee life cycle, right? So technology plays an extremely powerful tool today. Now, during the course of recruiting in the last couple of years, we added quite a lot of complexities in our recruiting process to go back to the point which Ankit was saying, that we want the best of the best talent in the market, right? So this also gave kind of a different ecosystem where you have a lot of different people who are helping you in your different methodologies, assessment, competency, behavior, etc., etc., etc. This became a problem of plenty in terms of technological tools and assessment that a recruiter has to go through, right? I'm sure all of you have various recruiter certification process which goes on for weeks and months together just to make them understand on what ecosystem do they need to operate in, right? Now, technology plays a vital role. I think one such example that I probably correlate to what we've been doing in Accenture is about building an end-to-end digital core and eliminating all the other tools that we have during the process, right? So right across both the life cycles, which is your pre-employee, which is your candidate life cycle, and also the employee life cycle, we have one common digital core. We've integrated all the other tools, assessments, whatever that you name it as, into one common digital core. And now the power of technology is so amazing that you have excellent user interface tools like Power BI and etc., which can fuel up and give you enormous data insights which you can craft it into your recruiting process back, right? I think this has come very, very handy. So my advice on technology is that leverage to the fullest, but know exactly what you're using technology for. Use the data and the outcomes of technology to make your process robust and simple, right? This is the era where people are knowledgeable. They're not new to the world of recruiting or organizations per se. They know exactly what happens in every organization because of the level of exposure and the IQ that they possess. So the essential element is to simplify, leverage technology, try to have one common platform across the board so it's easy to navigate, because the humongous activity of training, coaching, making people understand this within your own organization who are the end users is going to be very, very difficult, right? We went through that mammoth activity over the last about 8 to 10 months, right from a hiring manager to a recruiter to an employee to every teams and every facets of the organization where people found it difficult, right? So by simplifying this, I think it eased up quite a lot of process and made it even more efficient. So I think it's more about the relevancy of recruitment, what is needed in today's era with a fuel technology support, what you really need to put into your process, but yet whatever you do, keep the process simple.
Right, I think, thank you. I think simplicity is the key word, Praveen. I think completely agree with that. Many times we do tend to complicate some of the things which we really do. One more thing, I think, Praveen, which you alluded upon is the learning, right? I mean, when we are doing something, are people really understanding what we are doing, right? And therefore learning aspect comes into picture. And along with that, change management is something which really drives it, right? I mean, while you might have a technology in place, it is of no use if the users do not start using it. And I think that becomes very important. And I think, Vinutha, welcome. That's where just a quick perspective on this particular aspect, right? And you have been leading technology implementations for a very long time. How have you seen some of the challenges which really comes when the technology is really great? It really solves the purpose for which you have deployed a technology, but perhaps adaptation is not so great and it is becoming a challenge. And then perhaps how does the change management or any other interventions really help us to mitigate that challenge?
Thank you. First of all, apologies for walking in late. So that's the world that we are in, expect the unexpected, right? So with technology disruption happening and with the globalization hitting every organization, I think organization is evolving every day, I would say, even every hour, I can even say that part. So that means that no methodology, no process, no tool can be stagnant even for a year. And that brings a biggest challenge to us as, for recruitment perspective or from onboarding perspective or even from retention point of view. Now, if you will actually break down the tool adoptions, the framework adoption, we all are now talking about AI and Gen AI and then, all the AR, VRs, all of these things. Yes, it is good to have, and with the more complex world that we are hitting in, with the more remote and hybrid working that is taking place, where you need to go as a recruiter to local talent and hire them, technologies are an added advantage. However, we need to really see, I'll just start taking an example maybe that we can relate. We talked about job descriptions being generated through the GenAI tools. However, in this world of, as I said, continuous change, agility for recruitment team is a must. So when we talk about agility in recruitment, it is very important that we have the JD which is not very rigid. Now, if you actually more and more make the JD very rigid, your ability to tap the talent who are flexible, who are having the right learnability, who importantly have the skill that you need, is going to be tougher. So because you are again going to recruit for a pointed requirement, while you need to be looking at recruiting for an organization who have the fungibility to adapt to any other skill tomorrow. So you need to have the rationalization leveraged for the automated JD. When you say that, hey, this JD is good, it gives me a faster JD for a particular role, but what are those elements that I have to kind of manually tweak in to make the JD more flexible? So that's the first, I think, intervention that we have to do. Similarly, most of these data sets are evolving when it comes to tools and technologies. Yeah. So bias in the data modeling will be present for some more time. So until the data quality is matured, it is very important that we actually look at the data and see if there is a bias element, be it in sourcing the talent, be it in matching the profiles, or it could be even, really figuring out the experience part, because today we are talking about not experience but the competency, and the reasons are very simple. We cannot definitely work on the outdated technology where you may have 20 years of experience. You need the competency where an individual can look at a technology, learn the technology along with the soft skills that are required for the technology, and also the functional elements. So when the competency is being talked in the forefront, it is important that the bias in the data to be looked at, and a human intervention needs to be done when it comes to, again, adoption of technology. And similarly, we talk about distributed environment, working in a distributed environment. However, if we do not have a personal touch, and if we do not have a collaboration tool effectively implemented, which gives a human touch, I am sure, again, we may not be succeeding as an organization to align the cultural fitment or the social fitment of the organization. And another element, we talk about data and insights and reportings, all of these are good, but we have to be cognizant that they are based on the past data and not the future. So it is important that we as a talent acquisition team continuously poll in to see the market trend, economical trend, and then tweak into our models of, again, automation. So some of these examples that I wanted to actually, touch base.
No, I think really helpful. I think the important aspect on the data piece which you really spoke about, and I'm very sure many of us would have faced these challenges of having the correct data in place, right? In fact, defining the correct definition itself is very important. I will just give an example, right? For example, when you say who is a new hire, what is the definition of new hire? Is the new hire a person who has been in the organization for 12 months, or one who has seen at least one performance cycle, or there could be multiple definitions. The important thing also here is we are consistent throughout when we are analyzing the data. I think this was really important. Now, I think what we, and this also, your perspective also gave us an indication of how can we really improve the performance out of this, right? I wanted to get into the next one, which is on the passion piece, right? And we know that passion is very important when it comes to an individual, because it is something which will keep a person motivated, and that is something which ensures the success in the organization, makes the individual and the talent successful. So Vinutha, maybe perhaps what I would want to understand from you is what are the strategies which one could implement during the onboarding process, right? Once you have aligned the purpose, you have looked at your complete performance. But is there something as an onboarding strategy also one could do so that the talent is successful, right? And if you could share some examples of how you have done it.
Yeah, I think this is a day-to-day problem of all of us, is how do we rightly onboard an individual, especially when we are talking about speed, when we are talking about agility, when we are talking about remote working and hybrid working and so on and so forth. I think it is inevitable that we will have to have structured as well as very thoughtful onboarding mechanism. Now, onboarding doesn't start after you join, right? It has to be from the pre-onboarding time. And the pre-onboarding time is very crucial for, in my view, to really give a message to the individual who is joining us in terms of what is our cultural alignment. You could share some, write-ups, documents, but most importantly, our leaders have to connect with the prospective individual who is going to join us and share their thought process and their vision, their priorities as an organization. And at the leaders connect, while we talk about immediate hiring manager and so on and so forth, but a general leaders connect to a prospective employee during the pre-onboarding stage is very important, because an employee then walks in with an understanding that, hey, I have spoken to a leader who has some vision, may or may not be exactly matching, but I have a person to go to, right? I know a person to connect to as a leader. And then when you actually join, I think it's very important that we should have a mechanism to have a communication where the leaders, speaking board should be accessible to an employee, so that they continuously check what is the P&L part, what is the next important part or the priority part, what are the achievements. And these are some things, I think most of the organizations are doing it today, and that's nothing new. But what's going to be new is that how do we actually give that personal touch, right? The personal experience, especially when you're remote. And that is when I feel that strongly that a connect has to be a real connect and not should be only virtual. And there are multiple ways that we can do now. We can use the technologies like AR, VR, and etc., immersive technologies. But most importantly, what is the message that you're trying to give? The message, when you are in a world where you're dynamically changing your business priorities, when you are actually running behind quarter to quarter, it is very hard for you to give a fixed message. And the first message that I think one has to give to a person who is getting onboarded is that be agile. And here are the things that we are facilitating for you to be connected to the organizations. And that could be a social integration platforms, or that could be a cultural fit activities. Like for example, in our organization, we have CSR activities. And that's a part of integral part, members go and volunteer for it and also participate in some of these activities, which may or may not be directly aligned to talk about the culture, but it gives you a perspective as that this is indeed an important activity. Similarly, we have a connect with leaders, saying then connect over a cup of coffee, right? So we do that periodically depending on the level of an individual in terms of their hierarchical things, but it does happen. Third, most importantly, to be onboarded on a mentor platform. We have a platform called Mentor Me, where every individual can get onboarded onto the Mentor Me platform and figure out a mentor in direction or in alignment with their interest or based on the technology. And most importantly, alignment to the chapters. With the technology disruption happening every day, it is important that you connect. If I am joining as an AI professional, and if I cannot connect with another AI individual in the organization, I'm going to be lost. If not today, maybe in the next 1 year, because I will be disconnected from the technologies changes that are happening. So chapter-based alignment in terms of technology is very important when an individual joins, which helps him or her to give a career development. And a career development has to be democratic. As soon as an employee is onboarded, it has to be told to the person that career development is a democratic approach. We in the organization, just to share an example, that we have a program called Aspire, where any individual can actually join any program, but it has to be having some meaning and an alignment to the business. So we also have facilitated something called internal job marketplace, or what we call it as job portal, that helps them to see the pattern of jobs and then actually embark on a learning journey. Now, if I am a Java developer today, can I learn AI? So that path also to be given, which again comes into, again, it's about personalization. and integrating all your data, insight, reports, etc. A personalized learning journey is another important factor that you have to enable for an individual who is joining the organization. So there are various things I think we can go on, but what is important is that an individual needs to be felt that he is joining an organization which is growing, an organization which has a mission and vision, and even if the mission and mission, changing due to acquisitions and so on and so forth, it needs to be communicated, and voice of the employee needs to be heard on a continuous basis. And if these things are touched upon through various aspects, I think we have the mechanism right.
I think amazing, and thank you so much. Very beautifully crafted, I think, Vinutha, and lots of examples for all of us to take forward to, right? Very quickly, Romy, a very quick perspective, 2 minutes on how do you ensure that, this passion is cultivated right from the recruitment stage itself. So a very quick perspective.
Sure. Mandar, so the passion at the recruitment stage can come into picture when the talent outside is inspired by or is able to connect to the organization's values, as we've been talking about today. And at the same time, what is it for them, what's in it for them actually, that is extremely clear. All organizations, large organizations and even small organizations, if the employer brand is something that they are able to build, and there is a clear EVP that the organization is able to communicate at the time of hiring, then that connect with the talent outside translates into passion. Okay, and those various different programs that are being spoken about, one of the things that I often talk about is the ability to encash upon the opportunities available inside a large organization like ours. The internal talent mobility program that we run is something that that can inspire, and the passion can be ignited in even a new hire with the help of a program like that, because you see the organization growing in a certain way. You see people in the organization taking up different varieties of roles once they are in. So you're not joining the company for the role that you are signing up for, but you're joining the company for all the different possibilities that the organization creates for you, whether it is in terms of learning, in terms of new opportunities, new businesses, everything else.
Amazing. Thank you for this. I think we've discussed on, the three major pillars, right? I mean, we spoke about performance, we spoke on purpose, we spoke in terms of passion also. But, while looking at all these, all of them differently is important, it will give us some results. But what is more important is how do we really integrate them, right? I think this is where, Praveen, if I may request for your perspective, right? So while, there will be strategies for all the three pillars at separate places, how do you ensure that everything is integrated together so as to create one cohesive strategy for hiring?
Most important element, right? So I think the PPP, which stands for purpose, passion and performance, is essential to build any kind of strategy in terms of attracting talent, engaging and also retaining talent in the organization. So a couple of elements which is must have, and in this model is to ensure that the definition and the clarity around the purpose is essential at every stage of recruitment, right from the time you start with your candidate experience, with your onboarding experience, with every aspect that's involved which touches a candidate is essential that you clarify what is your purpose, right? Now, passion is something where you really need to foster a culture which is a very open-ended culture, right? I may be in a recruiter today, but I may be passionate to do some projects which is outside my boundary. Now, do you have those horizon which cuts across where people can pursue and do what is essential for them, which they think is right in their career progression, be it vertical or horizontal? Is there a platform for them to shine? I think that fostering a culture which is which actually acts as a DNA for passion is essential. And lastly, I think the performance element is I think we have quite a lot of metrics like Ankit mentioned about each of the element that where we measure the success and the outcomes. That can be very well integrated with the help of technology. And developing business acumen in our recruiters is essential today, right? So everybody needs the best of the best people, right? So do you really know what the best of the best people, after you onboard them, what are they going to do? Are they going to do the same job or not? I think getting that relevancy is essential in the whole model, and your governance framework should hover around the segment to say that I talk the walk at every aspect of each of the process steps, each of the experience, each of the life cycles of both candidate and employee together, that I mention and talk purpose, passion and performance at every stage. It should not be left out where you only do it at one part and drop it in the other. I think getting this stitched together is going to be a task, and educating your teams and getting them aligned is also going to be a task, right? It takes time. People will get into this culture, imbibe this culture eventually to make it and build a very high performing organization within. So that's the essential part, how you can probably stitch it together.
If I can just add a very quick comment, I love what Praveen said. Now, a lot of what is recruitment today will be automated very soon, and all the same technology tools will be available to all of us. So what will be the differentiator? What will be strategic? It will be all that, of course, Praveen has highlighted, but how much of our work is reactive hiring versus proactive relationship building in the market? That integrates all those elements of purpose, performance, passion, etc. So the more time we'll spend in proactive relationship building in the market with the kind of people we may have in the organization in the future, the more effective we'll be vis-a-vis only reactive hiring. JD comes, let's start hiring. I'll just sign off.
No, I think amazing to both. Thank you to both of you, right? And I think we are coming to the end of the session. I know we are just above a minute or so, but I will still take quick last 2 minutes, right? Just for all of us to take final key takeaways as working professionals on this particular aspect, right? What are those things which one need to really take care of as a challenge, and one thing which one needs to take care as a success criteria when implementing a hiring strategy? So maybe what from anyone from Vinutha, if you can start one by one, just quick one-liner, 1 minute insight.
So I think everybody understands that we have to be agile, and we should have agile recruitment process, and agility should be there in all process as an organization. And the key takeaway is that be on a learning path, irrespective of the maturity of the organization that is at today. And adaptability to the technologies is inevitable. However, using rationalization as where, when and how to use the technology is very important at all levels, starting from recruitment to onboarding to any of the process. And third important factor is that if we have to exhibit purpose, performance and passion, I think it has to start top down. The leaders have to lead by example and show that how on a continuous basis one can actually demonstrate the purpose of their role, purpose of performance of their role, and how to associate this to the continuous passion element. It is one, it should be an ongoing basis is what my takeaways would be. And especially in the gig working model, which is going to hit us sooner or later, where we will have a floating workforce, and how do you actually pass this on to the floating workforce as well with the methodical planning. That's important.
Thank you. Romy, very quickly.
Okay. So, I think in the current scenario, while tech is in the center of everything, you cannot do away with human element of touch. So tech and touch will go parallel. And the one challenge for the recruitment community is to balance agility with quality, with diversity and experience. So that continues to be the underscoring thing for
Thank you.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with Romy, and I'll only add one line. The depth of your human touch and where you apply that human touch will be the key. Everything else will be uniform. So I think we should prepare ourselves as companies to really get our people people to go deep into the market, build relationships with people, and take pride in the kind of human touch that is out there?
Two elements. One, I think best to keep it simple recruitment process. Simplicity is the element. Second, make it more relevant to the job descriptions that you're hiring for. Make the entire recruitment process more relevant to the current market landscape, to the current set of people whom you are hiring for. And last, be bold to embrace the change that's going to hit us. Find innovative methods that you can make it much more better. Human intelligence is always over and above every aspect of AI.
Thank you. I think thank you to all of you, all the panelists. I think it is absolutely clear that the strategic hiring is centered on these three pillars which we spoke on: performance, passion, and purpose are really important. It not only attracts the right candidate for us, right talent for it, but it is also makes them successful. And equally important is the integration and the examples which Praveen you also gave. Thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure moderating this session, and I'm very sure all of us have learned a lot of things which we can take to our organizations for implementation. Thank you again for joining this. Enjoy the rest of the session. Thank you everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day.
Thank you.